All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us from, and welcome back to our State of Validation report for 2025. If you've joined us, this is, I believe, the several years we've been doing this in a row. So if you've joined us before for the State of Validation, welcome. If this is your first time, we're super glad to have you. This is a webinar giving out the State of Validation report, all of our key findings. It's hosted by NEAT, and we're joined by a couple of our partner organizations in Corber Pharma and MMR Consulting. We're very glad to have them joining us to talk about what information we've found in this year's State of Validation report. My name is James Carey. I'm the Digital Marketing Events Manager for NEAT Solutions, and I'm the host of most of our NEAT webinars. So if you haven't joined us before, we're very glad to have you here. I'll go over just a few things for housekeeping as we get started here. Today, you are watching the webinar. You are a spectator, so don't worry about being on camera or having your microphone open. Just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. We do want you to still be involved and engaged, however, so there are a few different ways that you can contribute to today's webinar. There is a live chat. All of these should be to the right-hand side of your video. There's a live chat. You can chat with our speakers today. I'll be in there engaging while our speakers are discussing. Feel free to put in your comments. Let us know what you think about the discussion as it's happening. Likewise, next to that, there's a Q&A box. If you have any questions for our speakers today, any questions about the survey itself or any of the results and key findings we're talking about, feel free to put your questions in there. We're going to have a long discussion today. We're aiming to keep the webinar to about an hour, but with any time that we have remaining at the end, we'll answer as many questions live as we can. If we're not able to get to your question, don't worry. As long as your name's on it, it's not submitted anonymously, we will get the answer from our panel of experts and get it back to you in a personalized email after the webinar. Just give us a couple days, but we will make sure to answer your question. Likewise, we'll be running 2 interactive polls. So the third option there is poll. There will be 2 interactive polls throughout the webinar today. The first one is already active, so go ahead and answer that question now if you want. We'll come to it later and you'll have another chance to put in your answer, so no rush on that. If you want to share us your feedback, let us know how the webinar was today. Let us know about the State of Validation report. There'll be a survey at the end. I'll share the link for that as well as a QR code. It'll also be in the follow-up email thanking you for joining us and registering for the webinar. Your feedback is very important to us. If you want more information about NEAT, the State of Validation survey, or just to give us feedback about the webinar and what we could do better for next year, you can always email us at info@neat.com. That's info@kneat.com. So with that, I don't want to hold us back from the main event any longer. I'm happy to introduce Jamie O'Donnell, who is a frequent guest on our webinars and our NEAT Insights webinars specifically. Jamie is a senior manager for customer success engineering here at NEAT. He's a longtime expert of digital validation, and we're very glad to have him as the moderator for today's discussion. So, Jamie, I'll go ahead and pass it over to you to kick us off.
Thanks, James. Hi, everyone. Good to talk to you again, and good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world today. So just a quick introduction to myself. I'm the Senior Manager for Customer Success Engineering here within NEAT. My role within the organization is to meet customers, understand how customers are using the application, understand what they want to do with the application, and take that information and make sure everyone's getting the best use out of the application and feed that information back to the product group so that they are understanding the use cases that our customers have for the application. And that our customers are achieving the most and we're delivering the most for our customers. Today and into the State of Validation report, I'm just going to give you. So NEAT is a global organization with operations in Ireland, USA, France, Germany, Switzerland, Denmark, and Canada. It's a publicly listed traded company on the Toronto Stock Exchange, so we are held to a high standard of governance. The validation platform is used by 8 of the top 10 global pharma companies, and 3 of 4 COVID vaccine manufacturers use NEAT. There are currently more than 65,000 users on the platform, across 100 sites, across 100 customers, across 350 sites, and there are currently 40 global certified partners. All development is done in-house. There's no outsourcing. Everything is done in-house to maintain quality, because quality is the main goal of NEAT. We want to maintain quality. And as such, we are ISO certified as well. So that's just a quick little intro about NEAT. So I'm going to jump over now, and I'm going to allow our other speakers to jump in and introduce themselves. Oh, sorry, just the agenda first. So we're going to do some introductions. Then we're going to go into a little bit about background and purpose. The question set and demographics, just to set the scene about what type of questions were asked, who was answering. Then we're going to go into the key findings. We're going to group those into 3 settings today. We're going to look at people and organizations. We're going to look at the current validation practices, and we're going to look at digital transformation and technology. We'll wrap up with a conclusion, and of course, as James mentioned, a Q&A to try and give everyone the opportunity to ask any questions that they have that come up during the webinar. So please use the chat to get those questions in, and we'll address them at the end as much as we can. So I might just hand over to Oliver first to do his introduction, and then to Michael.
Yeah, great. Also, hello from my side to all participants. I'm Oliver. I'm from Körber Pharma Consulting. I have my background in discrete manufacturing, so I've been responsible for a software solution for more than 10 years, especially with part more on MES and process optimization or machine integration. I've worked before Körber a long time for a huge machine manufacturer, for CNC machines. And then I've changed again to a known machine manufacturer at Körber. It also came in this case for the division of consulting. So we are a company specialized in consulting, like in the naming already, in pharmaceutical and biotech industry. We do digitization processes, quality and compliance, of course, and we are also in a lot of MES projects located in Europe and the US. And happy to be here for our exchange today. Michael, I think it's your turn.
Thank you, Oliver. Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Rodionov. I'm the president and CEO of MMR Consulting. We're a global consulting firm with footprint in North America, so Canada and USA, Europe and Asia. We specialize in providing engineering and then turnkey CQV and CSV services to life sciences organizations globally. We help companies mature their CQV and CSV processes to more of the integrated and digital validation solutions. In my role as president and CEO, I oversee our entire organization. Globally, I oversee all of our complex projects and all of our teams. And we're up to speed with the latest best practices as well as trends and where the industry is going. And I'm happy to be part of this webinar today to discuss the current state and trends and future potentials and opportunities with you all in the state of validation.
Thanks, guys. Great to have you on the call today, and I look forward to the discussion as we get going through this. So let's jump on. So give my screen a second to move on for everyone. So we're just going to go quickly into the background and purpose, the background of the report and the purpose of why we did it. So the purpose. So this is the fourth year with a 75% response growth from 2024. We initiated the survey in 2022 by NEAT. It's an annual survey for a global validation industry study. It's the first in kind of it for the validation industry. The State of Validation 2025 includes qualitative research insights and showcases trends to illustrate the evolving dynamics of the validation industry. It's the only available and actionable industry data set that enables regulated companies to reference, benchmark, and enhance their validation programs, teams, and technologies. It enables deeper longitudinal analysis of broader trends impacting the validation industry. And we're going to look at some of those trends that we see at the moment when we look through the data set we have here today for discussion. In terms of authors and contributors, so the author, in 2025, the report was authored by the life science industry expert, Jonathan Kay. He's a Harvard University alumni and the co-founder of one of the first online medical market research firms. With oversight from the validation subject matter experts at NEAT, Kober, and MMR Consulting. Thank you to all our contributors, survey respondents, and interviewees whose insights contributed to today's report. Please register your interest in participating in the 2026 State of Validation Report survey now at thestateofvalidation.com/survey. So let's get going into some of the question sets and demographics that we have for this report. So we split the question into 4 sections. So the people and organization size, type, industry, geographic distribution, seniority, experience, job function, teams, challenges, workload, just to get a broad sense of who's responding to this survey so that we can give the best information possible back to people. The validation programs, structure, management, goals, budget allocations, CSA adoption, regulatory audit practices, and work processes. Again, just to understand everything that makes up the validation programs that these respondents are looking at. Digital transformation and technology, a key part in our industry now. Digital validation adoption, the key barriers to implementation challenges, benefits, return on investment, functions, and into other systems as we become key into Pharma 4.0 and that true digital transformation. And finally, AI integration in validation. Adoption of AI use cases, industry impact, primary concerns, and the evolution of validation practices as we take into account AI. My screen is just jumping around here. Sorry about that. Let me jump back for a second. Moving forward a couple. There we go. So just on the AI, we are going to have a dedicated white paper published later this year, and we'll explore that in section in 4, AI integration and validation in greater depth, and we'll expand on the insights and practical guidance. So that white paper will be coming out later this year. So the participants, and there was really a broad representation this year in the responses. So one of the first questions was the size of your organization. And this year, participants included validation professionals from companies of various size, years of experience, seniority, job functions, location, team size. Just to point out, there was 61% of respondents were from the life science industry. Others were consumer health, healthcare packaging, food and beverage, equipment manufacturer. So we really do have a broad range of respondents in different industries, but we are weighted towards life science, so it's important to keep that in mind. In terms of size of organization, you can see from the graph here, we had 21% from small companies, so anywhere up to 100 employees. Medium companies were 33%, so again, anywhere between 100 and 1,000 employees. Larger companies, 1,000 to 5,000 employees, made up for 19% of respondents, and 28% of respondents were actually from enterprise companies, which have been deemed more than 5,000 employees. So again, it's not just industry spread, it's not just seniority and job function, it's types of companies within those as well. So we really got a great spread of respondents this year. So we're just going to jump into our first poll here. So James, I might hand over to you for this first poll. I'm not sure if I'm after losing James. So I might just ask the question here while James might get that poll set up. So our poll question is going to be, what is the biggest validation-related challenge facing your organization today? And the options are going to be audit readiness, efficiency, compliance burden, and data integrity. So we'll give everyone a minute or two to answer those questions. Once people have answered those questions, what we're going to do is we're going to look through some of the validation challenges that our respondents gave us and see about the alignment there between those responses. After that, we'll jump into a bit of a discussion with our guests here today.
Thanks, Jamie. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
All right, perfect. That was a great introduction. So some quick results from our poll here as it is coming in. We have 44% of respondents in our live poll are saying efficiency is the biggest challenge that they face. 22% each are saying audit readiness and data integrity, and then 10% is saying compliance burden. So those numbers are shifting around a little bit, but those are still that's still the order, with efficiency being the biggest validation related challenge our audience is facing, followed by audit readiness and data integrity at in the tied for second place, and then compliance burden finishing up. I'll let those poll results come in. That data is still very valuable to us, but I'll let you guys get back to the discussion and our key findings.
Perfect. Thanks, James. So let's jump on here and take a look at the actual results from the survey. So a similar question to the survey respondents was, what are the primary challenges your validation teams face? And the survey response cited audit readiness as the paramount challenge, followed very closely by compliance burden. So you can see there's a close alignment here between the live survey as well. Efficiency and data integrity have consistently ranked among the top 5 validation challenges every year since 2022. And that has continued. You can see them here in number 4 and 5, or 3 and 4 of our survey, with lack of human resources coming in 5th. So again, we can see that there is a burden on our validation professionals for audit readiness to make sure they maintain compliance, for data integrity, efficiency. These things have not changed. They've shifted around, but there is still a consistent pattern within the state of validation report over the last couple of years. So we're just going to jump into our first discussion topic. And Michael, I might ask you to jump into this first one. So in your experience, what has been the most challenging aspect of maintaining compliance within validation programs, and how have you addressed that?
Thank you, Jamie. I think there's really a few factors that would impact maintaining compliance within validation programs. The first one would be if you have an existing operating facility that's validated and licensed, but that facility needs to keep up with the ever-changing, regulations, industry best practices, trends, and it's hard for an existing facility sometimes that has a lean team that is focused on running the site, doing requals, the odd projects here and there, but then to keep up with the regs as they come up. That could be quite an undertaking. So that's one aspect of it, which I'm going to dive into a bit deeper. A second aspect of it is, on large capital expansion projects, speed to market and in delivery of the CQV aspect of the project is really important. And usually CQV is left at the tail end. CQV and CSV, for example, the whole validation piece is left at the tail end of the program, where everything else from the engineering, the procurement, the construction, or in case of the software delivery, configuration, all those timelines may tend to shift and squeeze the validation to the very end of it. And so not only is speed to market important because we're being asked for, can you actually stretch that timeline even more, but you're getting squeezed from both ends, to be honest, because you're the last one holding up the flag at the end. So yeah. Speed and agility is very important in those as well. So you've got keeping up with compliance and regulatory changes and best practices. You've got speed on capital projects, and then the other thing you have is just the talent pool and keeping up with training of validation professionals, because the life science industry, as we all know it, continues to grow, continues to experience pretty big growth, and to support that growth, we need the humans to help support it, the validation professionals, and then training and keeping up with those validation professionals. So whatever we can do to give them the tools to be able to do their job in a compliant manner, in a consistent and harmonized manner, to help with their training and learning curve, to be able to, so that the consistency and the training piece is the last piece of it. So really those are the challenges that I've seen. And in terms of keeping up with compliance and best practices, digital validation tools really help with that, because it really helps you have a standard set of templates and tools across an organization globally that can be harmonized and used at multiple sites, so that then it makes it easier for specific sites not to have to do as much heavy lifting on maintaining those templates. and maintaining to be up to speed on the latest best practices and regulatory changes each time. In terms of speed to market on capital projects, it helps as well when you have tools that make the job faster. Standard tools and templates that have that are templatized, but also have standard templates in there as well, and that helps with not only just speed, but also with the last piece, which is the training curve as well, right? Because now you have pre-populated content, and you also have efficiencies if you're using entities and library properties and some of these new automated features that are available in digital validation, where you populate features like system description, asset number, asset name, location. You populate it once, and those properties are then pushed to multiple lifecycle and test documents. That really expedites document preparation significantly. So I think that those challenges, which are broken up in changing and evolving regulations, speed to market on large capital on capital programs, and training and development of staff, that digital validation can really help with those in a myriad of ways that I just shared as well.
Yeah, Oliver, I'd be interested to get your thoughts on those and your perspective.
Yeah, so our thoughts in this case, only to add that I don't mention the same thing Michael said already. So, well, when we have a look on our trainings, then we quite always get the same answers of how uncertain or how people are struggling with their documents and their work. So on the one hand, it's quite funny because so names like the risk-based approach, which are based in Annex 11, for example, is more than 10 years old already, and it's still like the companies are struggling with this uncertainty, like I've mentioned. So what our thoughts are in this case, agile working methods can process all the findings, and there's a part where Neat is a great tool to be able to react, to create transparency. You can see everything, and this support for agile approach is what we have in our mind, or what we see at customer locations.
Yeah, it's interesting you both pointed out the training, because one of the things that jumped out at me, we'll come to it later in the presentation, is the amount of people who are not familiar with CSA, a guideline that's out there a couple of years, probably something that I talk about with customers quite often. But again, it's clearly not permeating the whole way through organizations to everyone. So keeping up with regulations, keeping up with changes is an important part. I think as an industry, it's something we need to address. Like, we all are getting better with tools, applications such as Neat, being able to harmonize and make that training process a little bit simpler and things like that. But staying up with regulations is something that we as an industry have to do, especially in the world we live in today, in a changing world with things like AI coming on stream and everything changing every day. So no, great discussion. So let's jump on to the next part. So we're just going to talk about people and organizations and some of the key findings around that now from the survey. So workload continues to rise in 2025, with 66% of respondents reporting an increase in demand over the previous 12 months from 61% in 2024. While the percentage has dropped slightly from a peak of 80% in 2022, the majority of respondents across all 4 years continue to report growing workloads, confirming this is a persistent trend. People are getting busier. They may be getting less busier than they were a few years ago, but they are continuing to get busier. Organizations are not investing in validation staff. Teams with 1 to 3 members remain the most common, hovering at around 25 to 35% across all years. Validation is increasingly becoming outsourced to managed service providers. So 70% of respondents outsource some validation work, which is a significant amount of respondents now to be outsourcing 70%, or 70% of them to be outsourcing some validation. There is a significant depth and experience within the validation sector, with almost 42% holding between 6 and 15 years of total validation experience, highlighting a strong mid-career presence and a deep breadth of seasoned professionals within our industry, which is brilliant. It's about allowing those professionals that we have in our industry to flourish and achieve what they're looking for. So just some of the trends we're seeing on workload. So the question we asked here was, over the past 12 months, how has your validation workload changed? The majority of respondents across all 4 years continue to report growing workloads. In 2025, 66% reported increased demand, up from 61% in 2024. The percentage reporting a workload decrease has more than doubled, from 4% in 22 to 9% in 2025. This change could reflect some things such as early gains made from automation, lean validation models, or strategic outsourcing. So we already mentioned earlier, we're starting to see more outsourcing. This may be as a result of, or this may be an outcome of that trend. So just continue on the discussion of outsourcing. The question we asked here was, what percentage of your validation efforts are outsourced to a managed service or consultant firm? In 2025, we found a 30% to 70% divide, with 30% managing all validation in-house and 70% of respondents outsourcing at least a portion of that. Those outsourcing grew over 76% grew from 5% in 2024 to 8% in 2025. Again, highlighting that continued trend towards higher outsourcing levels. And now today, 16% outsource more than half of their validation workload. Again, signaling a deeper reliance on the entire outsourcing program that people are beginning to move to. So again, we're going to go jump into our discussion topic here and discuss the volume of work on outsourcing. So Michael, again, I might just ask you to jump in here. In your experience, what is the primary cause of any workload increase that we're seeing in our validation teams?
So what we're seeing in the industry is that the industry is booming. There's a lot of work coming up, and that work is hitting brand name pharma, generic pharma, and CDMOs. And there's then there's also competition, obviously, in terms of speed to market from them as well. So because there's more drugs being launched and more facilities being built, that leads to more workload. In parallel, what we've seen happening as well is in the last 5 to 8 years, there's been a lot more changes to regulations and best practices and guidances than there have been before in the last 20 years, let's say. So the evolution of those guidances and regulations is faster and higher. And now that's things like that are starting to put pressure on costs as well, right? Because now drug manufacturers have to be more competitive on costs, CDMOs have to be more competitive on costs. So validation budgets tend to become leaner and leaner because of a few factors like, the new regulatory regulations and best practices that come out that are more leaner and are more risk-based, but also because of all the volume of work and the competition that's out there. So that in itself, reducing budgets for multiple reasons in validation tends to put more pressure in validation. Doing validation in less time because of that also puts more pressure on validation. And if you have an organization that, let's say, hasn't modernized their validation processes in, say, 10 or 15 or 20 years and is not necessarily doing CSA for computer systems or integrated risk-based, CQV for equipment, facilities, and utilities, then they're going to really struggle to do it fast, to do it and to do it lean, and to do it right. And now when you put also a cost and standardization and compliance factor to it, if you have organizations that are not doing it digitally, then they're also going to struggle to compete with another organization that is doing it digitally because they might take longer. They might take it, it might not be as harmonized between the organization, between different people doing it, between different sites doing it. And so, those types of factors cause increased work in validation. So really the solution to that would be, obviously digital validation is a big advantage. And when you go digital, it's your opportunity to have a clean slate. It's your you have to set up all your templates in your digital system. So that's your opportunity to have the latest best practices, the latest best templates in your system, so that now you can be as efficient as possible. You can have CSA, you can have integrated CQV, and you can have it all digital, and it can be compliant, and it can be harmonized, and you can improve right first time. You can improve speed to market. You can improve recall time across your organization. In this case, you can have your cake and eat it too. You can be compliant, you can be quick, you can be efficient, you can be everything. So really, there's pressure coming from the volume of work in the industry, competition in the industry, changing regulations. That's putting downward pressure on reducing validation costs and timelines. And the way to really keep up with it is to make sure that you're not stuck in the stone ages, as you call it, with older approaches and paper, and to do really full digital integrated CQV and CSA. That's definitely a big part of it, for sure.
Oliver, do you want to jump in with your thoughts? I do have a question for Michael. I'll come back to it after I give Oliver a chance to talk. But there was one question jumped out there at that.
Yeah, maybe a few words from my side, what I can add. So yeah, of course, also we see in our project some peak loads. Yeah, we are in discussion. Yeah, that we even make validation in 2 shifts or in about 3 shifts. And yeah, from my side, it makes absolutely sense. Yeah, to involve consultancy services in this case. Yeah, because on the one hand, we've talked about the risk-based approach, where you maybe have some knowledge missing, where you can buy in some knowledge, and you've always the questions right now. How did other doers do it? Which kind of references do you have in this case? And yeah, but what we do also, we bring in like one person, a half person, or only we are in a base in some kind of projects, fast validation. So yeah, in my eyes, absolutely. Yeah, in this case, everybody's busy. I think this was Michael's introduction in this case. Yeah, makes sense.
Just want to add something, or did you want to go ahead before I do that, Jamie?
No, go ahead there, Michael.
Okay, so the pressure that I was talking about is pretty often that organizations are not set up with that. They don't have the latest templates. They may not be digital. So they want to bring in consultancy services because either they might have digital, they might have risk-based, but they need to help with the volume of work as their budgets are cut. And that typically would be more like a capital project type environment, that they're not staffed because their normal peak load is not this when they have a capital project. Or you have organizations where they may not have, so that's where they bring in a consultant for that peak to execute a certain scope of work, because we could be lean, efficient, to just come in, do it, and come out. Or it would be to actually help them migrate to digital and to risk-based, and help to put systems and best practices in place, because let's be honest, not everything's 100%. When I look at most organizations, they don't just go and follow ASTM or ISP to the 100%. They take bits and pieces of it. They take a hybrid approach between ASTM, E2500, and the ISP C&Q baseline guide, or between the CSA guides. And then they take their own best practices, and they have a hybrid of that, right? And us as consultants that work with various more organizations globally understand what works better or not for different types of organizations, whether they need to be robust, make the same product over and over again and mass produce it and focus on harmonization, or whether there's CDMO that need to be very flexible and agile and change quickly from customer to customer. We understand what works best for them. We have that expertise because we do it in and day out, and we can help the customers come up with those strategies, come up with those templates digitally, and digitize them as well. So the reliance on the outsourced services has been not just peaks in workload, but it's because of the amount of evolution the industry has had, that us as consultants that work across the industry globally get more visibility to it. than maybe an owner that's just focusing on their site, that we can help our owners improve on that.
Yeah, it jumps out at me as well from, and you mentioned the peak workload, especially around capital projects. The standardization as people move into capital projects and try to do multiple capital projects across the world at once definitely has a benefit. We've seen many of our customers move in that direction and standardize across business organizations to gain those efficiencies. But we definitely looking at the data, I definitely think there's going to be a continued trend towards that validation outsourcing. You look at the life science industry at the moment, there's been an awful lot of announcements of capital projects, new sites, new additions. I'm just curious from your point of view, Michael, do you see the same thing continuing, that you're expecting outsourcing of validation to just increase over the next couple of years as more and more capital projects come online across various customers and companies?
Well, I mean, with the recent announcements of all the projects that either have just started or have not even started yet, but will be starting in the US, that's a good 5 to 6 years of projects, right?
Yeah.
So that is going to impact the whole industry. It's going to impact, brand name pharma, CDMOs, generic pharma, API suppliers, material suppliers. It impacts the whole industry because these are very major investments that are happening. And so that peak workload is not going to go away for a long time. In fact, that peak is going to get spikier. It's going to become significantly peaker. And with the use of digital validation, what that allows you to do is integrate global teams more. And it allows you to use resources from various countries, from various time zones, to have work done round the clock. And digital tools allow you to do that. It's a lot harder to do that when you've got paper binders and people walking documents around and reviewing paper binders in person. So that helps you with speed. That helps you with being able to keep up with workload, and then to be honest, it also helps you with cost. If you can blend teams together, we do that all the time for our customers. We have a team of some on-site staff, and we have a team of some remote staff in different time zones, and we do that strategically. We could have people in North America, in Europe, and in Asia as well, so that we really can have documentation done on a 24/5 basis, or sometimes 24/7 if needed as well.
I recently spoke to a customer, and they kind of did the exact model you were talking about, where they finished on site at 5 p.m. their time, and they handed that documentation. They found some issues. They knew they were going to have to fix some issues within the documentation and re-execute that. They were able to hand that documentation over to another time zone who are experts in that digital system as well. We're able to take that equipment on, update that documentation, pass it over to the next time zone, get that ready to go, so that the next morning when the engineer arrived on site, they were able to execute immediately. It wasn't arrive on site the next day and spend the next 2 or 3 days updating that documentation. It was all done by resources around the world, collaborating digitally. And I think that is a huge benefit, especially, as you mentioned, the spike gets spikier, and we're trying to balance the resource load across the world now. I think it's going to be a huge benefit, and something a lot more customers are going to need to look at.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we get it brought in all the time to projects where customers have a spike in workload. They say, we'd like you to come in and execute some documents for us. We come in to execute, to author and execute documents, but what we find out actually is their processes are very out of date. And we end up rewriting their SOPs or coming up with new SOPs, coming up with a strategy, providing them a plan, providing them a brand new set of templates, digitizing them and having those templates digitally, and then executing the project. Right? So we actually have to take 2 steps back before we take a step forward sometimes. That happens pretty often as well. And really, it's having a good consulting partner, a good managed service partner that allows that to be our customer's competitive advantage when we help them with that.
Yeah, perfect. Great. Thanks, guys. Great discussion. So let's jump on here again. So we're going to look at current validation practices and some of the findings around that. So validation cost remains a significant challenge to control. 1 in 4 say validation consumes more than 10% of its total project budget. A notable share of this may reflect high regulatory complexity, extensive documentation requirements, insufficient processes that still rely heavily on manual effort. The survey reveals varying levels of adoption of CSA support, adoption of the CSA process, with half not using CSA and half somewhat along the curve of adoption. Audit readiness was identified as the top goal in 2025 as organizations aim for continuous compliance and inspection preparedness. Sizable adoption of remote regulatory audits was also seen, with 2/3 reporting some level of remote audit over the past year. So again, we can see some huge changes in our industry there, with CSA coming in. Audit readiness becoming more and more important, and the regulatory agencies now beginning to move toward little systems in order to be able to keep up with these types of things. So just on project budget consumption, so some of the trends we're seeing in that. Again, here the question was, what percentage of your project budget is consumed by validation activities? So more organizations are spending less. The less than 4% category rose to 22% in 2025, the highest in 4 years. Organizations reporting 8% or more of their budget on going on to validation dropped to 50% in 2025, down from 60% in 24 and 64% in 23, suggesting potential optimization or reallocation of resources. This shift in spending may reflect efficiency gains driven by increased digital adoption, expanding outsourcing, and use of leaner validation models. So again, all the things we talked about, we're seeing an addition of outsourcing, we're seeing digital adoption, we're seeing customers get leaner. So we're definitely seeing trends change throughout the industry in terms of budget, not just in practices. Computer software assurance processes, so the adoption rate. And the question here was, how familiar are you with computer software assurance, CSA? Roughly half of us are using CSA, while the other half are somewhere along that adoption journey. One thing that jumped out at me, and it's something I said I mentioned earlier on around the amount of people not familiar with CSA. 23% of respondents, so nearly a quarter of all respondents, are not familiar with CSA. And that just highlights the need for education and industry-wide communication. We need to get that information about regulation changes throughout the whole industry and to everyone we can. So some of the top goals on validation and the trends we're seeing. So the question here was, what are the primary goals of your organization's validation program? Being more audit ready and audit success was the top of the agenda in 2025, highlighting the industry's shift towards proactive compliance strategies amid growing regulatory scrutiny. Creating process efficiencies continues to be a dominant goal year over year as organizations managing workloads within lean teams. One thing that did jump out to me when I was looking at the 2025 column here, we see being more audit ready jump to the top. We see create process efficiencies being there. But we see something new come into it, the introduction of new technologies to improve validation. And to me, I do see that being more audit ready and audit success being linked to those new technologies. The guys have mentioned already, the more we're able to templatize our processes, standardize our processes, make those processes digital, the better we are at being audit ready, the better our opportunities for audit success. So that is an interesting trend that after coming in 2025, as audit readiness and audit success moves to the top of the list. So remote regulatory audits in the past 12 months. So the question here was, what percentage of your organization's regulatory audits were conducted remotely? 1/3 of respondents said none of their audits were conducted remotely, while 2/3 reported some level of remote auditing. Among those conducting remote audits, most said they account for less than half of all audits, most commonly in around 1 to 25% range. The focus on audit readiness as a top goal for validation professionals in 2025 reflects this growing regulatory expectation. And audit readiness has to become more important. If we have online and remote audits, we have to be audit ready more than ever, because audit organizations such as the FDA, the European agencies, have more opportunities to audit when they can do some remotely. So we're just going to jump to our second poll of the day. James, I might hand over to you for this poll.
Excellent. Thank you, Jamie. Back with our poll number 2 here. It's already been active, so in your engagement tab to the right of your video, you should be able to respond to that poll if you haven't already. But we have some responses coming in. It looks like a whopping 60% of respondents to our live poll have some projects being delivered digitally. So they're already familiar with digital validation. They are working with it, and it is part of their work already. Moving down the line backwards, we have 30% about to launch, 15% in initial discovery, and 8% starting today. Again, those numbers are shifting a little bit as we get results coming in, and I'll leave the poll open so that people have a little bit more time to respond. But it looks like we truly run the gamut here on experience and knowledge with digital validation or digitalization, with a lot of our live audience leaning that they've got some projects being delivered digitally already. Thanks, Jamie.
Thanks, James. And I think that live poll actually ties really well into the data we see from the survey. So survey results underscored a sizable shift towards digital validation within the industry. Education and training gaps account for the largest share of cited obstacles to digital validation adoption, highlighting strategic opportunities for upskilling and external support to drive adoption. Data integrity remains the highest ranked benefit of digital validation, as it was in 2024. Of those who say they have already adopted or are currently adopting a digital validation solution, 56% reported that the ROI was met, somewhat exceeding or significantly exceeding their expectations. Respondents ranked safe and secure storage of validation records as the most important function of a digital validation system, underscoring their critical role of data integrity, audit readiness, and regulatory trust. While adoption of digital validation is growing, integration with key systems like project management, analytics, tech transfer tools remains limited. And then AI adoption and validation remains in its early stages, with 46% of organizations not currently considering AI for validation activities, while there are 28% of those in the planning phase. So the adoption rate. So, and in line with the poll we just had there a few minutes ago, 58% currently use digital validation system, a 28% increase from 2024, when only 30% reported using digital validation systems. So we can see now more people use digital validation than don't within our industry. Only 7% of organizations are not pursuing digital validation, but their reasons differ based on the scale of that organization. So cost concerns are dominant among smaller companies. Larger companies face cultural or strategic friction between something maybe like certain sites versus central control and the different options people are looking for within that. The benefits of digital validation. So the question here was, in your opinion, what are the leading benefits of digital validation? There was no change in the top 3 from the 2024 results. Continued audit readiness ranked just behind data integrity, with audit readiness now ranked as number 1 validation challenge. Digital validations are proving essential in helping with this. So, voice of the industry, the benefits of digitization. So here's just a quote from one of the respondents. And the question to them was, how has increased regulatory focus on data integrity affected your validation practice in recent years? And the response here was, when things are paper-based, weird things can happen there. From a validation perspective, when everything is digital, there's a kind of data integrity that comes with a digital system. And I think we've all experienced that when you're dealing with paper, you don't really have control. We have review cycles, but things can happen when you're using paper. When you're using a digital tool like Neat, you can see who's using the application. You can know what they're doing within the application. There's a full audit trail of things that happen. When you're managing data in a tool like this, you can view the data, view where the data changed, view when the data is being used, view where the data is being used, how it's being used. It really guarantees data integrity when you're looking at a tool like that. So digital validation and ROI. How does the actual ROI from implementing a digital validation system compare to your initial predictions? 56% of respondents that said that the actual ROI from their digital validation system met or exceeded their predictions, and 21% of respondents find it too early to tell. One thing that I will mention here is that we recently had a customer come to us and tell us that they implemented logbooks within the application. They expected some benefit, were looking for some simplicity around their processes. What they didn't expect was the money value return. They estimated it out as $1 million in 1 year that they got in return on that, between transporting logbooks, between storing logbooks, between managing logbooks on site, between consolidation of logbooks, issuing of logbooks, returning of logbooks. So it was a huge surprise to them to receive that level of return on investment and monetary value when they had really expected just process efficiencies to what they were doing. So again, digital validation can really deliver on return on investment. So validation leaders saw it coming in 2024. That's really what we were seeing here. So in 2024, how do you see the validation industry evolving over the next 5 years? That was a question last year to them. So in the 2024 validation survey, digital and automated validation was seen as the clearest path forward. So, and we're seeing that come true now with 60% or close to 60% of respondents now using digital tools. In 2025, 93% are currently using or plan to adopt a digital validation system. But if we look at what ranked second in 2024, it was machine learning and AI. And this shows that the industry has already recognized the potential of AI and is moving in that direction. I know our survey results show that it hasn't gotten to full uptake yet, but you can see there's already 23%, I believe, were already planning on how to use AI within their application. So AI is coming, and the leaders of 2024 saw that. We have moved really into digital validation, and AI and machine learning is moving to becoming part of validation's day-to-day life as well. So the other question then is, does your organization currently use AI in your validation activities? So 28% of respondents are planning it in the planning phase. Only 16% have begun actively using AI in their validation processes, and 46% of organizations are currently not considering AI for validation-related activities. Highlights a significant opportunity for innovation and competitive advantage within those organizations. So people are moving in that direction. As we know, our industry can be slow to move, but people are beginning to move in that direction already. So we're going to move to our final discussion topic for today. And Oliver, I'd like to pull you in for this one first. In your experience, what is the primary use of AI within validation, and what are the ideal use cases for future implementation that you're seeing?
Yeah, thank you for the question. In this case, yeah, well, maybe for introduction in this case, yeah, it's right now kind of a momentum, yeah, in every exchange with customers. Yeah, we are talking about AI. Everybody wants to know, okay, what are the examples? What can be done? What can't be done? What will be planned? And yeah, so maybe first of all, during Validate, we have had a look on what is coming next. Also a need. So we knew that there are some AI components which will be built in the software, which is quite really good. We appreciate this, and what are maybe good examples with what we have, or maybe are already there, is like supporting in the generation of content, which can be done by AI, or to control of completeness. Then the third example we have had is like retrieval augmented generation, that we can use different kind of databases where we can get access, and create queries in this case, or even you think about also easy stuff like translate documents. If you work on different kind of sites all over the world, you want to have a standard in this case, or in e-validation at all. Then it's the easiest case. You translate your documents, and you get in a transparent and efficient way to your way of working. what is maybe also quite interesting to mention, I've said it's kind of a right momentum during this time. In July, the ISPE will publish the AI guide and the draft Annex 22. So also there we will get some regulation in the use of AI in pharma at all. So quite interesting time regarding AI. Maybe to summarize it a little bit, or also in a kind of the argumentation. All in all, what we suggest there in this case is also maybe to focus on the soft factors of this moment. So for a few of companies, it's not that easy to grab it. And this is why the reason why we are working in these examples. And a few of them are still feared. To use some tools if it's okay to use them and how to use them. And so in our mind, it's we think you shouldn't be a believer in technology at all, but you should create awareness, and keep the human in the loop, and take this as a tool, like Neat at all, and make your validation processes easier to handle, where it makes sense. It's not like that you need to use every kind of possibilities in this case, but once again, it's kind of a momentum. A lot of things are happening in AI, and you need to be at the ball right now. Let's say it like this.
Michael, your thoughts on AI?
Absolutely. Thank you. So we've actually done lots of experimentation and use cases with AI. And AI, to be honest, sometimes is all over the place. You get it, you ask it to do something, you get it to do something for you, and it does it differently every time, is what happens a lot of times. So what we've noticed is things like reviewing a trend, preparing, drafting summaries, and then a person peer reviews it. It helps. So we really want to use AI hand in hand with digital validation, where it will help make a person's job more efficient or higher quality, but it won't necessarily fully replace a person. And so those are things like reviewing trends and reviewing data, drafting a summary that a person will review. There's other use cases that we've tried to take AI a bit deeper into, which is we train it. We have, let's say, our templates within Neat, and we have specific test cases or section group tests cases that we would execute, like a drawing walk down, welding verification, component verification, calibration, cert checks. And sometimes you're spending 3 to 4 weeks going through 200 pages of MTRs and P&IDs, checking if all the heat numbers are there. So we've had great success on training AI how to take a specific Neat test case, a specific template, and giving it the data and having it execute it. And those are great things where AI and Neat work hand in hand, and AI is helping to execute the templates that are in Neat and helping a person be more efficient and helping honestly check a person's work to see if they made errors. You might have had a person do that walk down, then have AI do it too and compare it to see. It might find that, oh no, you actually missed it. This heat number is not there. We're missing a test, the documentation for it. And then apart from the AI, there's some great things which are API integrations as well. And so, and when we're working on some interesting and exciting ones right now with Neat on integrating turnover package software with Neat, so that as soon as the cal certs change state to final, or the weld documents change state to final, that P&IDs, whatever, they get automatically attached and uploaded and integrated to that Neat test case, the IV test. Things like also project management software and project scheduling software, that when a document changes state to approved, we don't, and we've got a lot of documents that have been changed state to approved, we can tell our schedule that those documents are now approved. And we don't have to sit down with the scheduler every week or two and go line by line through documents and update them on the status of where things are at, or something has started execution. So using AI to help Neat, integrating Neat with other software through APIs, that would be like taking Neat to the next level, and then even getting even more efficiency from Neat, right? Unpeeling the onion to the next level and getting more savings and more efficiencies as you scale up Neat within your organization.
Yeah, and I think even within the findings of the survey, data integrity being so high, data integrity becomes key when you begin looking at AI and the data that's being used for it. We all see in our certain AI models when we do it, it says AI may not be 100% accurate, comes up at the bottom, but as a little disclaimer. So the integrity of the data that we put into it, the integrity of the data in the system that you use to help that AI is key as we go on. So great discussion, guys. So we're just going to jump into the conclusion here, and we're going to just get to the questions that you people have. So just to recap on the findings, the workforce is under pressure. Audit readiness is now the top challenge. Teams face increasing workloads and limited resource, making strategic resourcing, upskilling, and retention essential. Fragmentation persists. Many validation programs remain decentralized. Centralized frameworks and digital tools are key to driving harmonization and meeting regulatory expectations. Digital validation goes mainstream. Adoption jumped to 58% in 2025. To maximize ROI, organizations must prioritize implementation, planning, use, adoption, and system integration. And AI is on the horizon. Although it's still early use, AI is gaining traction, and now is the time to build internal capabilities and monitor regulatory developments such as Oliver mentioned, coming out from the ISP later this year. So that is everything from our discussion side of things today. So I'm just going to hand over to James for the Q&A portion.
All right. Thank you, Jamie. And thank you, Michael and Oliver, for some great discussion points there. It was very in-depth and, well, it really engaged with our audience. We have several questions that the audience have put in here. Unfortunately, we are out of time. We are at the hour mark. We want to make sure we're keeping, honoring people's time who came to join us and make sure that our recording is not too long here. But as I've promised before, everyone who has put their questions into the Q&A box, we will still get you answers. We're going to take all of these questions. I'll put them into a document, share them with our speakers. We've asked that them for a little bit of extra time to answer your questions, and we'll have a Neat representative reach back out to you. Someone will email you, give you the answers to your questions. And if you want to know more about digital validation, how Neat GX or Neat as a company, how MMR Consulting or Körber Pharma handle digital validation, and how your company can adopt digital validation practices to make your processes more efficient and help with your projects, we are always here to answer those questions and connect you with the right resources. So again, I want to thank everybody who contributed to this year's survey. Every year at the beginning of the year, we open up our survey for that year. We rely on your contributions to get an idea of the state of validation and truly get a finger on the pulse of what is happening, what challenges you're facing, what trends you're seeing, and how we can formulate these discussion points. So my colleagues have put the link in the chat, and I'll put it in again for the State of Validation survey for 2026. To get notified when that becomes available, you can go to stateofvalidation.com to get more information on that every year. Follow that website for information about 2026. And tomorrow is the official launch of the 2025 State of Validation report. Just for attending today's webinar, you will get that report in your inbox. You'll be one of the first to be able to view and see that report in full, along with the recording of today's webinar to reference back our discussion topics from Jamie, Michael, and Oliver. I'm also going to put in the chat now a link for a feedback survey. We'd love to have your feedback about the webinar, about the survey, anything you want to tell us for how we can continue to improve and engage you all. Feel free to also drop in that survey any suggestions you have on topics that you want to hear more about in our Neat webinar series. We have our Neat Insights webinars that are thought leadership and trends that we see in the digital validation industries, and our partner showcases. If you want to hear more from MMR Consulting or Körber Pharma, let us know. We'll work with them to bring you the topics that you want to hear about on these webinars. So again, thank you to our panel, thank you to our audience and our contributors for the State of Validation 2025 survey. Once again, I'm James Carey with Neat Solutions, and on behalf of everyone, thank you for joining today. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time on another Neat webinar.